Welcome to the weekend edition of Between the Hash Marks, where you will get all your fantasy information, your ideal picks against the spread for Week 13, and much, much more. With the playoffs starting for some fantasy leagues this week, this information could be crucial if you have big money in your fantasy leagues. We also have some breaking news here as Jimbo Fisher, former Florida State University head football coach, has agreed to take the job at Texas A&M to be their head football coach. He has now the richest contract in NCAA history. 10 years, $75 million. That is a lot. I am here with my partner, Sean McCabe, and I'm James Koklak. What's going on, bud?
Not too much, man. Not too much. Yeah, this news is pretty crazy. To me, it makes zero sense. I mean, he left a good job for an okay job. I know he's getting more money now, but you're never going to be able to beat Nick Saban consistently, and that's what happens to a lot of good coaches. They go there thinking they can do it, and then they can't. So, good luck.
You know what? You just brought up a valid point because I thought it was not a smart move, but a good move because Florida State looks like crap right now, and you know.
Is it really his fault, though?
A lot of Florida State commitments are now decommitting from the team. I don't know what Florida State's going to look like in the future, but you know what? My week has got to be better than Florida State's week and better than one QB's week. A two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, might I add, who's been benched for a journeyman quarterback. Find out who and our take on it next during my opening rant.
Your number one source for sports.
You know who I can't stand? Kevin Durant.
He looks like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton had a kid.
Now, who can argue with that?
I hate Boston.
I'm the biggest Miami Heat hater you'll ever meet.
I just don't understand where you're getting your bogus information from.
What the hell are you even talking about?
Well, I'm sorry you're too freaking sensitive to handle the truth.
You think I'm crazy? I'm just getting warmed up.
You're now Between the Hash Marks with James Koklak and Sean McCabe.
When you are a professional athlete, you expect nothing but respect from the organizations that you play for. It's a mutual thing. Eli Manning has been a consummate pro for his entire career in a New York Giant football uniform. He has played in New York for a franchise that is ever so historic and where the media can kill a career in a sense. Through the ups and downs, he has never taken full credit for the big wins and has taken the full blame for the big losses. Has Eli Manning been the best quarterback in the league? No, not even close. He has been turnover prone for basically his entire career, but he always gave it his all. When the team needed him to make a big play, he would come through, hence the 2 Super Bowl wins against the Patriots. He is a leader of this team on and off the field and has been for many years now. With that being said, I think the Giants made the right move, in a sense, but went about it the wrong way. The Giants season is all but over at 2-9, and it has been a very disappointing season for the team. Lots of people had the Giants going to the Super Bowl this year. I personally had them going to the NFC Championship game this year. Injuries have played a huge role, but nonetheless, Eli Manning's career is near the end, so I understand the quarterback change. Going to Geno Smith instead of Davis Webb, though, is an asinine move because we already have seen what Geno Smith can do in New York as he spent the first part of his career wearing green and white, playing in the same stadium. The Giants and Eli weren't and aren't going to last forever. With Eli being on the wrong side of 35, it's time the Giants start to look towards the future. But with more respect to the quarterback who never missed a start, won 2 Super Bowls, and has been the constant on your team since 2004. The Giants need to see what they have in their other quarterbacks, and if they are the future, or if someone in this stacked draft class is the future at that position. But the way they have gone about this is wrong. Eli is the elder statesman in the locker room, and a guy most young guys can look up to. What example are you showing current and future players about how you will treat them, even if they do win a Super Bowl in blue? If I were a free agent, this would scare me off because I'd want better treatment for my team if I was in Eli's position. I expect more and better treatment to their players from the Giants, and I think this will result in the GM and the head coach being let go at the season's end. Eli Manning has thrown for 50,625 yards while completing 60% of his passes, throwing 334 touchdowns to 222 interceptions. Those are respectable numbers, and Eli Manning deserved more from a team in whom he gave his all to year after year.
I'm sorry to tell you this, James, but anybody who thought the Giants were going to the Super Bowl, they're complete idiots, and they need to stop watching ESPN because they just shove the major markets down your throat and say, hey, these teams are going to be really good.
Some of them are on ESPN.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know what? Anybody who thought that the Giants were going to the Super Bowl, you need a rain check, because I was telling you at the beginning of the year they weren't going to make the playoffs. I was telling everybody they weren't going to make the playoffs. They made these ridiculous signings like, oh, Brandon Marshall, we love our wide receivers and we love our defensive backs, but we don't care about our linebackers, we don't care about our offensive line, and we care about the least important positions of the team and not the most important. So there's that. And you can't just blame everything on the injuries. I mean, this team was terrible before the injuries happened, when they were still healthy. Remember, weeks 3 and 4, they were healthy, and they still lost those games. They lost the games before that, they lost the games after that. Nothing has changed since those big injuries have happened, or before those big injuries have happened. But how did you expect them to go about it? They asked him if he wanted to start, and he said no. He has the dignity to say, I don't care about this record, even though it probably does mean a lot to him.
I love that about him.
Yeah, no, I love that he did that, and it shows that he's a real person. But what did you expect them to do? Not
start Geno Smith. If you're going to bench Eli, you have to go to Davis Webb. Geno Smith has already played in New York. The New York fans, Jets and Giants, those are the teams that are on local TV in New York, New Jersey, the tri-state area, except for South Jersey and obviously Pennsylvania.
Okay, but do you think that the move is wrong, like how they treated him? Because I mean, okay, what if they weren't starting Geno Smith and they were starting Webb?
I still think that this needed to come from John Mara. Why?
It's up to the head coach, though.
No, and you know what? And if it's up to Ben McAdoo, you know what? Ben Wackadoo, all right? That's what he should be called, Ben Wackadoo, because he's a whacked-out head coach, and for reasons like you just said, and injuries definitely, I think, have played somewhat of a part. Will the Giants be a playoff team with the team they had to start the season? Maybe not the way they looked the first couple weeks. But a team with Odell Beckham and Brandon Marshall, they have to eventually get going. I think that this team would not be 2-9. Maybe
Maybe you're right. Maybe they'd be 3-7 or 3-8.
I don't know. I was thinking of more along the lines of 4-7, 5-6, maybe 6-5 at the max.
You're getting ridiculous now.
But hey, you have to think about that. The one constant that's been on the team this year that's been bad is the coach. Maybe he really is the problem.
That's not the one constant that's been bad about this team.
Well, I'm talking about as one single person.
Okay.
As the offensive line as a whole has been bad.
But even that, I wouldn't even agree with, because I think the GM did a terrible job of addressing needs. I mean, he thought that this team needed wide receivers when they clearly did not, and he didn't. The secondary was fine, the defensive line was fine, but they didn't really address the linebacker position. They didn't really address the offensive line position at all, and they didn't address running back.
I think it's because they spent so much money 2 off seasons ago, where they filled the needs with Janoris Jenkins and Olivier Vernon and players like that who are making big money.
Yeah.
So that takes up a lot of their salary cap, and I think that also has to play a part of it. And those were smart signings. If Janoris Jenkins is a top 10 quarterback in this league.
But you're supposed to build your defense from the inside out, not the out. And the same thing with the offense. You don't start with your wide receiver. You don't, just like the defense, you don't start with your cornerback. You start with the defensive line,
trenches.
The linebackers, and with the offense you do your quarterback and the offensive line. Yeah, and that's how you go about it.
I think to build a football team you start in the trenches, but I think that there's more to this. And I don't understand why Ben McAdoo would bench Eli Manning for Geno Smith.
Well, I'll tell you exactly.
That is where they went wrong.
There's 2 reasons. One, it's an attempt to save his job, to make a change and save his job.
With Geno Smith?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, but it's also a thinking that, okay, we just want to make sure that we get the number 2 pick in the draft, and keeping Eli in there, you have a less chance at getting that number 2 pick.
I don't disagree with that, but play Davis Webb.
Yeah, okay.
See what you have in him.
And I think he's going to get his shot before the season's over. He's definitely going to get his shot because they know Geno Smith is not the guy. Even if it would take Geno Smith going out there throwing 4 touchdowns, 300 yards for 3 straight games.
I'd say every game for the rest of the season because
Fair enough, yeah.
he already has. I think it's 38 starts in the NFL.
Yeah, so he needs to ball out for the remainder of the season for him to continue to have a job. But just going forward here with my points, Eli doesn't connect with anyone in this locker room. This is a locker room that's mostly young guys, and he does not have that connection with these younger guys because what you said, he's 35. You look at what Tom Brady did. Not many people know this. Tom Brady hired a millennial consultant. I believe it's either before the beginning of this year or before the beginning of last year.
What is that? I didn't hear this, and I don't know what that is.
He hired a person, a millennial consultant, to teach him about what younger people are listening to as far as music goes, what they're watching as far as movies and TV shows, what they're reading, what they're eating, what they're doing in their free time, what kind of video games. There's all the things that millennials do, younger players. He hired somebody to teach him about this so he can have something in common with his teammates and talk about things to build a relationship.
Could you see Tom Brady sitting at his house playing COD?
No, I actually can't. I can't at all. Unless it's with Mark Wahlberg, no.
That's probably what he's doing if he's doing that. That's crazy. I'd never heard of it. It's smart. Don't get me wrong. It shows why Tom Brady's the GOAT. Yeah. But I did not hear that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and also, this is a business. The Giants are trying to do what's best for the Giants, and going away from Eli is what's best for the Giants because in April, when the draft comes around and they have the number 2 pick and they take the second best quarterback in the draft, they're going to be very happy with that. And they're like, finally, we have somebody to replace Eli Manning. And that's where the mindset should be for Giants fans. But right now, they're just thinking about, oh, Eli got dissed so hard. And they're right. But Eli is allowed to get benched. Peyton Manning got benched. He is the better brother, and he got benched for an ostrich.
Yeah, and Osweiler was kind of still an unknown at the
ostrich.
Now he's the worst quarterback in the history of football, probably.
Right.
But Peyton was terrible that year. But just going back to your points, I just want to say that if they're looking for the future, and you are looking to get that second overall pick, and I understand that Eli Manning has been benched because they want to secure that pick in a sense. Not to give Geno Smith any credit because he deserves none. He was on the football team that I cheer for how many years, and he was absolutely terrible. That's why we signed Fitzpatrick. He's going to keep you in the game at least, in some games. Where Davis Webb right now is kind of an unknown. He's going to come in. He's going to make a lot of turnover. He's going to make a lot of mistakes, turn the ball over. Part of being a rookie, and he's not. It's very rare that a quarterback like Dak Prescott, and I don't want to compare him to Tom Brady, I'm just saying it as an example, late round picks that come in their first year, their first time playing, and they actually succeed. It's very rare. So Davis Webb is probably going to do worse than Geno Smith would for the rest of this season, even though I think they'd both be pretty bad with the team the Giants have around him right now. No Odell Beckham, no Brandon Marshall, Sterling Shepard's barely playing because of his migraines. The offensive line is terrible. They're both set up to fail. But if you want to secure that number 2 overall pick and get either a quarterback or see what a quarterback has that's in the NFL right now that possibly is on your team, aka Davis Webb, you know what Geno Smith has. You have 38 games worth of tape on him. There's no reason to start him. That's the wrong move. That's why it's a shame to Eli, because if you're going to make this move, at least do it right and have the respect for Eli. Don't bench him for a quarterback who has 38 starts and has done nothing to get himself on the field.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, but all this tells me is that they just want to secure the number 2 pick, and going with Geno Smith / Davis Webb, whatever the hell his name is, it helps them secure that number 2 pick. But to agree with you, it is absolutely hysterical. The Giants think Eli is the problem. Now, I'm not a big Eli Manning fan at all. Everybody knows I hate Eli Manning. I hate him more than I hate the Miami Heat, which is a lot. For
I wonder why.
But he's not that good this year, but he's all right. And it's
better than most years.
Yeah, no, he's 14 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's not terrible at all. But it's hysterical that the Giants think Eli is the problem. And they did the same exact thing 2 years ago with Tom Coughlin, where they thought he was the only singular problem with this team, and they got rid of him. And now you see what you're lacking without Tom Coughlin. There's no discipline on that team at all, and that team is not focused. And you see what Tom Coughlin's doing now. He took a year off. Now he's with the Jacksonville Jaguars as the president of football operations, essentially. And look at them. They're 7-4. They're tied for the division lead in just 1 year. And
got the number one defense.
And they got the number one defense, and they're a good running back, a decent offensive line, and it looks like they're doing things with Tom Coughlin. So this is really a shame on the Giants organization as a whole, the GM, the coach, who needs to be getting rid of. And you know what? They want to lock up this number 2 pick. I don't blame them for doing it. I really don't blame them for going about it this way, because what were they going to do? They had to ask him. They asked him. He said no. So you move on. It's not. I mean, it is their fault that Geno Smith is their primary backup, but it's not their fault that's the person that's next up in line.
Hey, but you can skip the next up in line.
Okay, that's fair.
You can skip the next up in line. It's been talked about all season that.
But it's funny though, because people are mad about Geno Smith taking the start, but people are more mad about Eli getting hosed. But it's not. But it's like, what are they going to do? They're 2-9. They need to do something.
I think they go hand in hand. I'm personally more mad that Geno's getting the start, and that in itself is the hosing of Eli. But it looks like we do both agree that this will result in the GM and the head coach both be letting go at
least McAdoo. I'm not sure about the GM. We'll see, because he's been decent.
But the point you just proved is Tom Coughlin got let go. Who did that?
No, that's true.
The GM.
That is true.
And Tom Coughlin's succeeding right now. And look at the New York Giants.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if the New York Giants had Tom Coughlin as their head coach this year to start the year, who knows? Maybe Odell doesn't even get hurt. Maybe Brandon Marshall doesn't get hurt. Maybe that's just bad juju from the whole team being terror. You know what I mean? Like, things could have been different. They could have actually been a good football. They had so much talent on this football team. It's unbelievable.
Except they didn't have any talent in the linebacker position or the offensive line or the running back. So, I mean, we can just keep going back to that.
Well, all of those things, I think, would have changed if Tom Coughlin never got fired. He would have had a 2-year window to fix those issues that Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese did not fix.
Possibly. Coming up next, we are giving you the second half of our power rankings. Stay tuned. You're listening to BTH.
You're listening to Between the Hash Marks with James Koklak and Sean McCabe, brought to you by an unknown sponsor we don't have yet. Now back to the show.
And welcome back to Between the Hash Marks. Last episode, we gave you our 32 through 16 teams power rankings, third quarter power rankings. This episode, we're giving you 15 through 1, but I do want to make a quick correction, an overreaction, I would like to say, from last night's game, Thursday Night Football, between the Cowboys and the Redskins. I originally had the Cowboys at 17, and on this list here, I had the Redskins at 14. Spoiler alert. But I am taking the Redskins out of my top 15, and I'm moving them to where I had the Cowboys at 17, and I'm moving the Cowboys up in my rankings. You'll find out where they are later to come.
I've done the same thing in a sense. I did not move the Cowboys. The Cowboys are still at 20 right now.
Okay.
And, that will change most likely if they continue on this path in Week 16 when we do the next rankings. But I took the Redskins and I moved them back to 16 where I had the Raiders. We did 16 last week.
Yep.
So I did that because the Redskins did not look good. I had the Redskins at 12 originally. Mm-hmm. They kind of seemed up in the air. That was a big game, and they did not show up. It shows the heart that's on the team. It shows Kirk Cousins in my head is already thinking to next year, where am I going to be playing? Because it's not going to be for the Washington Redskins. I have moved them down to 16, and I have moved the Raiders up to 15, and I already talked about the Raiders on Wednesday, so I will save the rest, but everybody has moved up 1.
Okay, fair enough. Going through my 15 through 1, I actually have the Oakland Raiders at number 15 as well. Look, this team has had a very tough start, and they've been riddled with injuries. Derek Carr was out for a game or two, so that definitely they played the Ravens that game. They could have won that game if Derek Carr played. It's a kind of a faulty win for the Ravens, but their defense is absolutely terrible. I can't give them any credit for that. Chiefs I have at number 14. Chiefs, one of the hottest teams in the league starting off. Now one of the coldest. They've lost to terrible teams. They lost to the Bills at home. They've lost to the Giants on the road. They just lost to terrible teams all around. Their defense is terrible. Look, they're injury ridden on defense, and they've just been giving up massive amounts of yards. Even when they were winning, their defense was terrible, but their offense was putting up points. Now Alex Smith is a no-show.
I'm curious to see how Darrelle Revis affects all of that.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think much of him right now at this point in his career. Number 13, I have the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions, they've beaten all the bad teams they played, and their only losses are to the good teams they played, but those losses are close losses. I can't put them higher because they've only won one of those games, and they beat Minnesota in Minnesota about week 4, week 5, and now it's impressive, but they haven't really followed it up with anything at all. So I have the Detroit Lions at number 13. I'm moving the Dallas Cowboys up to number 12. It's obvious when the Dallas Cowboys have their offensive line healthy, which it is right now, they can run the ball on anybody. The last 2 weeks, they didn't have an offensive line. They couldn't run the ball on anybody. Now they do. Now they can. Dak looks a lot better when he has his offensive line and his protection as well. Number 11, I have the Seattle Seahawks. Their secondary is completely decimated right now, so I cannot move them into my top 10 unless that secondary is completely healthy. Also, that offensive line, yeah, they added the left tackle from Houston. Yeah, he's a lot better, helps that offensive line out a lot, but they still don't have a running game, and Russell Wilson's been phenomenal this year, but they don't have a running game. They're not balanced at all. Their defense is not really that good with those losses, so I can't really put them any higher. Number 10, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, my Jacksonville Jaguars, and I would have them higher, but that Blake Bortles scares me so much. And yes, he did run for 2 touchdowns. He did move the ball, but he had an ugly interception last week, and he's known for having those ugly turnovers late in the game. If the Jaguars are down by whatever amount you want them at, when they're losing, going to take the lead for the final score, they're not going to be successful most of the time. It's that defense that really gets them ahead. And when they're ahead, they run up the score because they can run the ball on anybody. Number 9, I have not the San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers. I do this every time.
Second time I've heard it.
Every time I talk about the Chargers, I call them the San Diego Chargers. Damn it, you got to move back to San Diego. It just feels right. Number 9, how do you have a under 500 team in the top 10? That is absolutely ridiculous. Well, look, when they started out 0-4, we were talking about it all the time. Every episode we talked about it. Chargers are losing these games by a possession. They look really good. Their offensive line looks good. Phillip Rivers doesn't get sacked. They sack the quarterback a lot. They have 2 monsters on their defensive line. Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa looks really, really good. And they're finally putting those wins together and against decent teams. But the only thing that kind of scares me, why I may have them a little bit overrated, they beat teams. They beat the Cowboys when the Cowboys were injured. And they took advantage of the Nathan Peterman starting for the Buffalo Bills. So those are kind of 2 faulty finds. They didn't really play the teams at their full strength. So that kind of makes me weary of how high I have them rated. But nonetheless, they're playing really good. Los Angeles Chargers, number 9. Number 8, I have the Atlanta Falcons. Now this is a team, they have the same net yards per play as last year's Super Bowl team. Still 1.1 yards per play. Net. That is insane. That this team was good enough to go to the Super Bowl last year. They were good enough to win the Super Bowl last year in most people's minds. This team really hasn't changed. They've been really unlucky in the red zone this year, but the last couple weeks they've started to get that luck back where they're converting in the red zone, and I think Sarkisian's starting to finally figure out how to do his job. Number 7, I have the Carolina Panthers. Now I don't love Cam Newton. He's way too inconsistent for me, but that defense is nice. I like Christian McCaffrey. I like their offensive line. And when Cam is on, this is one of the hottest teams in the NFL. I have the Carolina Panthers at 7. Number 6, the New Orleans Saints. This team has been incredibly impressive to me this year. Drew Brees is amazing. Over his last, I think, 5 or 6 games, he has like a 108 passer rating, and their running backs are amazing, both Kamara and Ingram. That defense, I love their defense. I love the rookies on that defense. I have the New Orleans Saints at number 6. James, what do you got 15 through 6?
Well, let's start with I'm going to start with 14. I have Oakland.
Yes.
I have Oakland at 15. So 14, I have the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
And I have them. They have such a talented team. Matt Stafford is a stud. I don't know why they consistently are inconsistent, but that's why I have to bring them down so far. They have a solid tight end. They have a solid receiving core group. Abdullah was amazing in college. Theo Riddick is an awesome receiving back. I just don't understand. Their defense was so opportunistic early this season. I don't understand why they're so inconsistent, but that is why I have them all the way down at 14. I had the Baltimore Ravens at 13, and I know that seems kind of high, but they are on a 3-game win streak right now, and this is just over the last 4 weeks. How have they looked? They have looked great right now. Their defense is being studly. Their defense, Terrell Suggs has found the fountain of youth. He is single-handedly dominating for their defense, and it is a big reason why they are moving up in the standings and moving up in the power rankings. They currently hold a wild card spot in the AFC after the disastrous start to the season. For Baltimore Raven terms, I have the Seattle Seahawks at 12. And I have the Seahawks at 12 and not my top 10 because even though they're a talented team, they're decimated by injuries. The Legion of Boom, there's one of them left, and it's Earl Thomas. And it's just so ironic how last year they were missing Earl Thomas, and now he's back and they're missing Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor. What are the odds? But there is more to this team. The offensive line needs some help. Russell Wilson is really been the one bright spot this year for the Seahawks. And it sounds weird to keep them out of the top 10 list this late into the season because usually they pick up their play, but they really haven't, and I have to leave them out. And I have the Tennessee Titans ahead of them. Why? Yes, I know Tennessee is minus 27 point differential on the year, but they do play in a tough division, and they're 3-1 in their division this year. They're also 7-4 on the year. So the losses that they have, yes, they've gotten blown out, and the wins they have are close. But 3-1 in a tough division with Jacksonville. We just talked about how they have the number one defense in the league. They have to play them twice a year. The Texans, their defense was good to start the season. Deshaun Watson came in. They were playing really well. That team looked like they were contending for a playoff spot. The only really negative team in that division right now is the Colts, and that's because of the whole Andrew Luck situation.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you right here. How can you say the Titans are that good? Yes, they beat the Jaguars soundly, but that was before the Jaguars really knew who they were. But they got destroyed by Houston when they had Deshaun Watson. And then their two other division wins are against the Colts. And they barely won last week in Indy. And yeah, they took care of him, but the Colts are terrible without Andrew Luck.
Well, the only reason I can say that is because how many years are the Jets absolutely terrible and the Patriots win a 31-28 game? You know what I mean? And then we're looking at it wait a second, are the Jets really this bad? Or are the Patriots not that good? We never think the Patriots aren't that good. They're always that good. So the Titans seem to step up when it's needed most. And over the last 3 weeks, their defense has 9 sacks. They've really picked up the play as of late. So right now, I do have them at 11. If they continue to play with a negative point differential and they're getting blown out losses and their play dips, I'm sure they will drop. But over the last couple of weeks, they have moved up for me. And now into my top 10. The Atlanta Falcons are number 10. I have them here because you just said that they have basically the exact same team from last year. They're just so inconsistent. Julio Jones has had an off year. Matt Ryan has had an off year in a sense. Devonta Freeman has gotten hurt. Their whole team, they're still a good team, but they're not that. They don't have the feel of that Super Bowl team that went last year. Last year they were a special team. You just had that feel when they made it to the playoffs. They were going to make some noise. We didn't think they'd go to the Super Bowl. At least I didn't. But I thought they'd make some noise. I don't have that feel this year. And you know what? As of right now, they play in the toughest division in football, record-wise. So it is really tough competition week in and week out. And you know what? At number 9, I have the Carolina Panthers. And I have the Carolina Panthers one above them on the sole purpose of the Panthers' defense is just a little bit better than the Falcons. Defense wins you championships. The Panthers have looked pretty well as of late, even though they kind of had a dud game against the Jets. The Jets almost beat them. Carolina came away late with a turnover. They were opportunistic. When you're opportunistic, you have to jump up in the rankings. Playing sports is all about the opportunity. When the opportunities arise, you have to take advantage of them. And that goes in any sport, and the Panthers have been doing that. They are my number 9 team. Number 8, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. How weird is it? Week 12 has passed, and the Jaguars are 7-4, including their bye week. This is pretty scary to think about because you think about the Jacksonville Jaguars over the last 10 years, and they've just been awful. Awful comes to mind, but not this year. They've really taken a turn for the better. Tom Coughlin has turned this team around, has given them some direction, some stability, some, not coaching, but some words of advice. He's a mentor to these young players. They have such a young team. They're loaded with weapons. I can't imagine where this team would be right now if they had Allen Robinson getting the ball thrown to him. He's out with an ACL injury, unfortunately. But the Jaguars, they are so impressive this year. I really like their team at number 8. And I have the Chargers ahead of them at number 7. So you aren't the only team with a losing record in the top 10. And I have the Chargers up at number 7. I have the Chargers up here because, yes, they started the season 0-4, but they have won 5 of their last 7. They're on a 2-game win streak right now. The only 2 losses they have in that time are to Jacksonville, number 1 defense in the league, and New England. And that game was in New England, a place that the Patriots very rarely lose. So they have looked so much better as of late. Philip Rivers really has a stranglehold on this team. He is putting them on his back and he is carrying them. But not to mention their defense. Their defense has looked phenomenal. The words can't describe what Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram have been able to do on defense this year for the Chargers. They have really gotten it done. And that's, the Chargers have been a bright spot all season. And the losses they have been by 1 possession or less, basically. So they're a really good team that had some really unfortunate events earlier in the season. I have them at number 7. And number 6, I have the New Orleans Saints, same issue. Why? I wish I could put them in the top 5, and you will hear my reasonings why I couldn't next, but they are number 6 because they have been awesome this year. Drew Brees has really taken off after the first 2 games. They did start the season 0-2, which is scary to think that they're 8-3 now. But they're a full team. They're not just Drew Brees anymore, you know? When you think of the Saints, you think of a large passing game, throwing the ball 50 times a game. Not anymore. Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara have really rose to the occasion and have gotten the job done. They're running the ball more than they pass the ball. And in most games, it would be 50-50 at the very minimum. So, and I haven't even mentioned that their defense. They found Marshawn Lattimore from Ohio State, their first-round draft pick. I saw an article saying that he's going to be the next Darrelle Revis, that he's got the look, he's got the smarts, that he models his game after Revis, and that's who he inspires to be, and he actually looks like that on the field. So their defense has been a top 10 defense this year. The Saints have looked really, really good. I'm very impressed with them. Although I did say at the beginning of the season they would go 12-4. They started 0-2. I backtracked. I shouldn't have backtracked because chances are they really have a shot at going 12-4 this year. They have 5 games left. They have to go 4-1 to make that happen. They already ripped out an 8-game win streak. I think it's possible that they could do 4-1 over the next 5 games. Who do you have at number 5?
Number 5, I have the Los Angeles Rams, and it's simple, man.
That makes 2 of us.
Okay, well, here's the reason. Their coach is a freaking football genius. He turned one of the worst quarterbacks that we've seen into somebody who's extremely productive in Jared Goff. The offensive line seems to have been completely fixed. Todd Gurley has gotten rid of his woes, and that defense is good, really good. Not to mention, people don't really talk about this with the special teams, but they have an elite special team. They're always winning the special teams battles every single game, and that has an advantage. Everybody talks about the 2 sides of the game. There's really 3 sides of the game, and if you have a good special teams, it really helps you. If you have bad special teams, it really hurts you, no matter if your defense is good or if your offense is really good. Just overall, complete, really good team. That's why I have them at number 5.
Well, I have nothing else to add to that because I couldn't have said it better. But that being said, number 4, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. The only reason I don't have them higher is because games like Green Bay last week, Green Bay's got a terrible defense. I want to say it's 30th ranked in the league, at least against the pass it is. I know that. And it was a home game. How are you going into overtime with an Aaron Rodgers-less Green Bay Packers team? They have looked terrible. And then you're supposed to have the number 1 or a top 5 pass defense, and you let Brett Hundley throw the ball all over you? I mean, that's kind of scary, even though their offense is unbelievably talented, and we know they can put up 50 points on any given night. They've been so inconsistent, I don't know when to trust them.
Number 4, I have the Minnesota Vikings, and their defense is probably the best defense in the NFL. Just honestly, players 2 through 54 for me, they're just really good all around.
Who's number 1? Who's player number 1?
Player number 1 is the quarterback.
Case Keenum.
Yeah, Case Keenum. So Case Keenum, he's having a really good year this year. I'm not going to say I distrust him, but I don't fully trust him this year. But I like what he's doing, and because of his play, he's really elevated them to the level they need to be at to really be a Super Bowl contender this year. Their running backs, they figured it out this year with McKinnon and Latavius Murray. Even though Dalvin Cook is gone, this team would be even better with Dalvin Cook, but they really did figure it out with Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon. Their wide receivers, Thielen and Diggs, really good. Defense, like I said, amazing across the board. Number 3, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 3, and the only reason why I don't have them higher is because the other 2 teams are just really good. This is one of the most talented teams in the NFL, and the reason why they have those struggles that you were talking about is because I think it's a problem with Mike Tomlin. He's the opposite of Bill Belichick. He's outgoing, he's outspoken, he's not disciplined. He's all those things that Belichick is not, and because of Pittsburgh's talent, they're able to overcome those things when they're playing bad against bad teams, and that's just the kind of team that Steelers are. They play down to the team that they're playing against, or they play up to the team that they're playing against. I mean, we saw it against Kansas City after they just got routed by Jacksonville. We're like, wow, Kansas City's gonna have a field day with them, and Pittsburgh comes back and they beat them in Kansas City. So the Steelers, if they can gain some consistency, if Mike Tomlin, honestly, if he gets his head out of his ass, this team can be something special. But I really don't think that's going to be the case. Who's your number 3 team?
I just want to backtrack really quick because I said I was going to mention it and I forgot. The reason I have the Saints at 6 and the Rams at 5 is because they faced off last week and the Rams did win, and it was a pretty solid game overall. That's why I have them next to each other, but you got to give the Rams the nod in the top 5 because of that win. Moving forward, I have the Patriots at number 3, and they have really jumped up all the way. I had them at 13 at one point.
Yeah,
so
that was dumb.
I have them back. Well, you know what? The first 4 games, they could have been 0-4. They did not look very good. But Tom Brady is having another career year. Bill Belichick is being a genius again. Do I really have to explain why I have the Patriots at 3, or does it just make sense?
You have to explain why they're not number 1.
Well, I know that. I think we have the same number 1 team, so I think we both agree on that. We're gonna find out, though.
Okay, continue.
I have the reason I don't have the Patriots at number 2, and I have the Vikings, Minnesota Vikings at number 2. I have them that high because, like I said, the Steelers have been inconsistent, right? The only difference between the Patriots and the Vikings right now, besides the fact that the Patriots' defense isn't as good, even though they've been better of late, the Vikings have had a tougher schedule. They play in a tougher conference. They play in the NFC, where there are many more teams that are harder games available. Their only 2 losses are to the Steelers and to the Lions, and the Lions are a division game, and I have already talked about how talented they are, and they're just inconsistent. But when the Lions play well, they play well. They've got a top 10 quarterback in this league. The Vikings have had a pretty tough schedule, and they've gotten it done without their starting quarterback, without their starting running back. They really have a complete team, and I love how they've come together. The Vikings are a really, really, really special team this year.
All right, yeah, no. Number 2, I have the New England Patriots, and they've just been on a roll. They honestly, I don't think they have not given up. They have not given up more than 17 points since week 4. Week 5, they gave up 14. That's really when they started just nailing it down on their defense. Yeah, they still give up a lot of yards, but they don't give up points, so who cares how many yards you give up? They're terrible between the 20s.
Break.
Exactly. That's exactly what their style is. It's what they've been rolling with for a number of years now. Bend, don't break. And it's really working out for them. Brady is Brady. He's been honestly phenomenal. And they have a great collection of running backs. One week it's Dion Lewis. The next week it's Rex Burkhead. The next week it's James White. The next week it's whoever you want to throw out there. That running back is going to do well against whoever.
It's unfair, but I hate it for fantasy purposes because you never know who's going to get the ball.
Absolutely. So the Patriots, they've really done a number. I did actually drop them in my last power rankings. I had them number 1. I had to drop them number 2, and it's because number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. This team is so good they don't know what they're doing. And by that, I mean teams like the Patriots, when they're normally doing this well, they kind of lay off a little bit, or the Steelers, they lay off a little bit when they're playing against certain teams. They're just trying to get that game over with. The Eagles, they're flying like crazy, and they're all young guys. They never had this before. They never experienced this, so they don't know what the hell they're doing with their success. They're just going to continue doing what they've been doing every week and blowing teams out of the water. And because they're playing like that, because they're winning blowout games like they're supposed to against terrible teams, you have to put them at number 1. James, I think you agree with me.
I do. I have the Eagles at number 1. I didn't for a while. I was not a believer. I do want to mention, though, that this week, I know the Legion of Boom really is not there, but in my opinion, Earl Thomas is the Legion of Boom. He's the best player out of the Legion of Boom.
Okay.
So if they're going to have one of the 3 there, he's the guy I want. But Seattle's a tough place to play. It's very loud. There are only a couple of stadiums, if that get as loud as Seattle does. This is a road game for the Eagles coming up in Seattle. So this will be a true test to see if they can hold that number 1 ranking, or if the Vikings or Patriots or Steelers will jump up and get there. But everything you said about the Eagles, I couldn't have said better. They're young, they're fast, they're talented, they're exciting to watch, and they're going to be a really, really, really good team to come. And they look like geniuses for giving up all those draft picks for Carson Wentz. But coming up next, we have our DraftKings lineups and our picks against the spread right here on BTH.
You're listening to Between the Hash Marks with James Koklak and Sean McCabe, brought to you by an unknown sponsor we don't have yet. Now back to the show.
And we're back here on BTH, and we just did our NFL Power Rankings for Week 12, basically Week 8 through Week 12, and we did the Eli Manning talk. Now we're going to jump right into our DraftKings lineups, and you know what? We're going to start with the defense because we share in common the defense. The only thing we share in common for our DraftKings lineups, 49ers defense, 2,600. 49ers are playing the Chicago Bears this week. Chicago Bears are 24th against opposing defenses. They're 2,600. Literally no other reason other than those two is why I took them.
Yeah, no, I took them because they're cheap as hell. You gotta be different when you pick these lineups, and I think they have a good shot at, just because of that new air around them, because they're this team going up. Chicago's kind of a team going down, and you know, I think everybody in that San Fran locker room is fully motivated with Jimmy Garoppolo and everything going on. I'm going straight into my quarterback. My quarterback is Drew Brees, 6,500. Going against the Carolina Panthers. Look, Drew Brees has been absolutely phenomenal over the past 5 weeks, over 100 passer rating. His statistics, though, fantasy-wise, haven't been that amazing because they've been running the ball too damn much. Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram have just been dominating teams. But when they played earlier in the year against Carolina, Drew Brees had a phenomenal game. This is in the Superdome. And when the Super Bowl is going wild, which they normally are when this team is good, Drew Brees really plays well. I got Drew Brees. What do you got?
I got Tyrod Taylor, 5,400 value pick. He averages 15.7 points per game. New England's defense, yes, they have been good, but as you said, they do let up a lot of yards, even though they don't let up a lot of points.
Yeah.
So I fully expect Tyrod Taylor to put up decent numbers against the Patriots. They still, even though they've played well, are 32nd against quarterbacks. And this far into the season, that's unlike them. I'm going Tyrod Taylor, 5,400.
Okay, going straight into my running backs. I have Carlos Hyde, San Francisco, going against Chicago. I believe Carlos Hyde, he's really going to take a lot of pressure off of Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's only 5,900. My other running back, I have Alvin Kamara. Normally, I'm stacking a quarterback with a receiver. Well, he kind of is a receiver. It does say Carolina's second against the run, but who cares? He's not a real running back. He's catching most of the balls. He's the Darren Sproles, if you will. He's going to have another big game. He's really expensive, though, 8,400. Who do you got?
I took somebody like Alvin Kamara, but vice versa, he's 4,800.
Okay.
Duke Johnson Jr. I took him because...
Stealing my pick.
I did steal your pick. He's going up against Chargers, 29th overall against running backs. I think with Josh Gordon coming in, the team just has a little bit of an uptick to them, a little bit more upbeat. So Duke Johnson, 4,800, great value pick. I also have Leonard Fournette, 7,800, going up against the Colts, 23rd against the run. Leonard Fournette is the main reason why Jacksonville's succeeding on offense, because if they can't stop Fournette, they can't stop anybody. So if you stop Fournette, then you can throw the ball because they're stacking the box. There's a lot that goes into it. Fournette's a great play, though, this week against Indy. 7,800, he's a no-brainer. Jumping right into my wide receivers, I've got Nelson Aguilar. Why? Because he's not the number one wide receiver. He's not going to see number one wide receiver attention. I think this will be a great game. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, Philly versus Seattle. Nelson Aguilar, 5,000. Great value pick. DeAndre Hopkins. I know he's got Tom Savage. Everybody laugh. Go ahead. Ha ha ha. Yeah, but he gets like 15 targets a game. He's still getting 6 to 8 receptions a game. He's still putting up numbers. He's still putting up points. He still averages 21 point fantasy points per game. And that's right, Tennessee is 25th against the pass. I fully expect DeAndre Hopkins to receive a lot of targets, a lot of receptions, a lot of points. And last but not least, Emmanuel Sanders, 20th overall, is Miami against wide receivers. I know this game is in Miami, but Trevor Siemian is back starting. Trevor Siemian's favorite target is not Demaryius Thomas, but Emmanuel Sanders, who is now healthy. Don't look at the 10.9 points he's averaging per game. I think he'll be in the 15 to 20 range this week. And he's only 4,900. He'll never be this low again. Grab him while you can.
All right, my wide receivers, I have Devontae Adams at 6,500. He has been the only constant, reliable thing on the Green Bay Packers since Aaron Rodgers has gone down. Just quickly going through his numbers since Aaron Rodgers has gone down. Week 6 against Minnesota, 16.4, then a dud 3.2, then a bye week, then 12.3, 20.0, 23.6, 19.2. Obviously, Brett Hundley has a connection with him, and they're going against the 32nd ranked defense, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is so freaking juicy, you have to grab it right now. Next wide receiver, I'm stealing your pick. You stole one of mine. I'm stealing yours. Robbie Anderson, 6,300, going against the Kansas City Chiefs. We've been telling you for like weeks now, Kansas City is terrible on defense. Take our damn word for it. We're following our advice. We're winning money off this stuff. You should too. Robbie Anderson, 6,300. And kind of a wild card play right here, Seth Roberts of the Oakland Raiders, 3,700. This is total value right here. Woo! There is no Michael Crabtree. And Amari Cooper was just ruled out with his concussion, and he's also got that ankle injury. Derek Carr has to throw the ball to somebody, and it's going to be Seth Roberts going against a terrible Giants defense. They're just completely worn out from the whole year. Seth Roberts is a guy you gotta take right now. Going straight into my tight end, Hunter Henry, 4,700, going against the Cleveland Browns. Look, Phillip Rivers has been dominant last few games. Absolutely dominant. Going against the 30th ranked defense. Keenan Allen is the number one target. He's going to be facing a lot of the attention. Keenan Allen's going to have a big day, but he's very expensive. Hunter Henry, very, very cheap, 4,700. Great value there. Who is your tight end, James?
I got Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He is only 4,000. He's averaging just under 10 points a game, 9.9. KC is 14th against tight ends, and it seems every game Seferian-Jenkins is either scoring a touchdown or getting one called back, but he really should have had a touchdown. Yeah, so why not take him? He's been really big for the Jets, and I expect another big game from him. KC we've been ragging on their defense all day, so why not add to it? Austin Seferian-Jenkins is a great place to start a tight end this week.
All right, who is your flex?
Crazy enough, my flex is expensive. $8,200, Todd Gurley.
Wow.
Todd Gurley, he's going up against Arizona. They're 21st against the run. And if Los Angeles is going to win this game, Todd Gurley has to be successful. I think Todd Gurley, he's averaging 23 or 22.9, 23 fantasy points a game. I expect him to be in that range again. Do I have to explain why Todd Gurley should be my flex play if I've got enough money for him?
No, you're good. My flex play, I have Sammy Watkins going with the same team. Look, if Robert Woods is going to be out again, which it's likely he's going to be, both Cooper Kupp and Sammy Watkins are must-adds to your team. But Cooper Kupp is a lot more expensive. You could get Sammy Watkins for $5,200. And if you look at what he did last week with no Robert Woods, he got 9 targets, 4 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. That's good for 18.5 fantasy points. You got to feast on that while you can. And he's only $5,200, like I said. Now, jumping in to our picks against the spread. I'm just going to jump right into it right here. I have the Detroit Lions +3 at Baltimore. Now look, this is my least favorite pick of the 5 that I have here. But look, Baltimore is the most overrated team in the NFL. I can't believe that you have them 13th in your power rankings. They're the worst offense in the NFL, the worst offense in the NFL, 32nd, and the 3rd best defense, okay, yes, but they played Oakland with no Derek Carr. They played the Packers with no Aaron Rodgers. They played the Texans with no Deshaun Watson. They've played nobody. They've played no real offenses, and when they do play real offenses, or even fake offenses like Jacksonville, they get routed completely. They're completely reliant on the turnover, which is completely random. Turnovers are so random. Very little luck involved in turnovers. Detroit, all of their losses have been to top teams in the league. They do well against bad teams. I think Baltimore is terrible. Give me Detroit +3. Go ahead.
I've got LA over Arizona -7. I'm sorry. The Rams should have a field day with Arizona. They really should. Arizona's not a great team. Carson Palmer's out. I mean, Blaine Gabbert's not impressive. When you're playing a real team, a real defense, a real offense like Los Angeles seems to have right now, this game should be at least a touchdown margin. The Rams have been hot. They just beat a team on the Saints that are 8-0, that were 8-0 in their last 8 games on an 8-game win streak, and they came down and took them off. So, I couldn't pass on this. The Rams are going to be the Rams should absolutely dominate this game. I believe they have a top 3 offense in the game right now. Arizona's defense isn't all that great at the moment. They're kind of banged up. So I'm going with the Rams. Who do you got as your second pick?
My second pick is Green Bay +1 against Tampa Bay. Now, I looked at this line again before we did this podcast, and it's at -2 Green Bay right now. It opened up at -2 Tampa Bay, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, I gotta take this. And then as soon as I go in to make my pick, the line changes to +1. So I'm like, damn it, I gotta get this right now. So you can tell this is headed in that direction where you really need to get on Green Bay. They're at -2 right now. I still like them at -2. It's a little bit of a square bet, but if you can get them back at plus whatever or pick them, you got to take Green Bay. Look, Jameis Winston is back, but I think that's a slight downgrade because I don't know if he's 100% healthy coming back. I know Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick fully healthy, he is an upgrade over Jameis Winston. So in that scenario, Ryan Fitzpatrick played well in those 3 games that he was covering for Jameis Winston. Tampa, they just got knocked out of the playoffs, so they have nothing to play for anymore. Green Bay has everything to play for. They know if they win this game and they win next week against Cleveland, Aaron Rodgers is coming back. They're 7-6. Aaron Rodgers coming back, and they're going to make a playoff run. And Green Bay is at home. This is one of the biggest home field advantages in the NFL. Hundley looked good last week against a good defense, Pittsburgh, and Tampa Bay is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Tampa Bay should be a lot easier for them.
It's December. It is finally the frozen tundra.
Exactly.
So, but I'm going to jump right into my next pick. I've got Seattle +6. Seattle is an underdog at home. How often does that happen?
I think it's only like the 2nd or 3rd time in like 20 years they're an underdog at home at night.
So, why am I not going to pick them then? So that literally, do I think will the Eagles win this game? There is a chance the Eagles will win this game. This is going to be the true test for the Eagles, I think, this week. Mm-hmm. And regardless, any way you put it, I think it'll be less than a touchdown game. So why not? If this is more than a touchdown game, I'd be very surprised.
Okay. Going to my next pick, I have the New Orleans Saints -4.5 against the Carolina Panthers. Drew Brees, I've already talked about. He's been amazing the last 4 or 5 games. And you can get them kind of cheap because of last week's loss. If they beat the Rams last week away, they would be like a touchdown, maybe 8-point favorite right now. I think there's some great value getting him right here. Both their running backs have been sensational.
Carolina defense scares me.
Yeah, no. Carolina's defense, I think they're a little banged up, so I'm not totally in love with them. And we look at earlier in the year when the Saints weren't good at all. They were 0-2, and they completely thrashed Carolina on the road. And also, Cam Newton's way too inconsistent for me. Yeah, he could have that game where he has 3 touchdowns, 300 yards, a rushing touchdown, and 50 yards rushing, and he just balls out. But he also has those games where he throws for 178 yards and has to rely on the defense to score for him. And it's just, I can't trust a guy like that. Who's your next pick?
I've got Denver -1.5 favorite over Miami in Miami.
You do know Denver lost 7 in a row, right?
And that's why they're going to win this week. Okay. They also have Simeon coming back. Sanders is fully healthy again. Those two can connect again. Their defense is also phenomenal. Denver's defense is still really good. I know they haven't shown it lately. I know Talib is suspended for a game. So be it. They still have a solid defense. You still have Chris Harris back there. You still have Von Miller in there. You still got a lot of talented players. Denver, they're too good to go on an 8-game losing streak this season. I think the buck stops here with the Broncos losing, and they're gonna finally break that streak. They're gonna win this game. It's only -1.5. I mean, if you're gonna win this game, I very rarely is a game come down to a point or 2 points. So it's usually 3 or more. So why not take this game either way? I'm going with Denver at the time that they break that losing streak.
My next pick, I have Pittsburgh -4.5 against Cincinnati. I thought we were going to have this one head-to-head. I could have sworn you were going to take Cincinnati. Look, Pittsburgh is 4.5-point favorite. Now they're like a 6-point favorite. So you got it. It's been elevating the
last I saw was 5.5.
Yeah, so it's up and down the whole week. You got to get them at the good value. 5.5, I would still take Pittsburgh. Look, the narrative here is Big Ben balls out on night games. The defense, who knows? I mean, they didn't do that well against Green Bay. But I think there's some real value here because they didn't do well against Green Bay. If they won that game by 20 points or 10 points, I think they'd be a 10-point favorite right here, and I wouldn't be taking them. But Cincinnati, Andy Dalton, terrible in primetime games throughout his whole career. This is way too good to be true. And if you look at the line earlier in the year with these two teams, Cincinnati was only a 4-point underdog going into the game earlier in the year in Pittsburgh. Now Pittsburgh is a 4.5-point favorite, so things have definitely changed. It's just interesting to see where people have put that movement. And I think Pittsburgh is clearly the better team than Cincinnati.
I was so close to taking Cincinnati.
I wish you did.
So close, but I couldn't. I'll tell you why really, really, really quick. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers have been so inconsistent. I take them every time.
You
and
do.
I lose the bet every time. I'm not going to take Cincinnati.
Well, that's why I want you to take Cincinnati, because Pittsburgh will do well.
Yes, because Cincy has a good defense. So I was thinking, all right, I'm not taking Pittsburgh.
I was maybe
Cincy, and then you dared me to, and I'm like, no, I cannot do it. I can't do it. I just can't get myself, because I know if I bet against Pittsburgh, they're going to come out firing. Maybe I should. I need Le'Veon Bell to do well this week. So you know what? As at my 6th pick, Cincy, 5.5.
All right.
You heard it right here.
All right.
But going forward, KC, I got them as a 3-point favorite at the Jets. Yes, I know the Jets have looked decent. Their defense is pretty good. Their offense has looked pretty well, honestly. Rob Anderson's flushing. I mean, Josh McCown, he's a journeyman, in quotes, but, he's been pretty good this year. Besides the fact, I still think KC comes out with the victory here. The Jets always seem to shoot themselves in the foot. It's only a 3-point favorite. KC will probably win this game by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Somewhere in that range. I'm going KC all the way with this one. And last but not least,
it's our final pick. It's our pick that we agree on. I can't believe we both agree on this pick. I thought I was going to be a little bit sneaky with this pick right here. But it's San Fran. I got him at +3.5. You got him at +3 against Chicago, at Chicago. Look, here's a stat for you. John Fox, while he's the coach of the Bears, he is 0-6 straight up when he is a favorite at home. 0-6 straight up. That means San Fran's got this game. They don't have to play the game anymore.
What that means is that he usually coaches bad teams too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because how could you only be a favorite at home 6 times in your coaching career?
Look at that. So also Garoppolo makes this team about a touchdown better than the stiff they had back there before. Maybe even more than a touchdown. I might have them a little bit slightly down, underrated because of that. And San Fran's going in the right direction, even though they're only a 1-win team. They're going in the right direction. They look like we know what they're doing. Chicago, they're not. It looks like John Fox is a lame duck coach. He's going to be gone after this year. There really was no progression at all. And if you look at net yards per play, which is a stat I freaking love, last year they were 0.4, which was about 17th or 18th, average, pretty much average. This year they're negative 0.3. So that's a 0.7 difference in yards per play. It's a huge difference. And Trubisky, he looks pretty stiff back there. I was impressed his first couple games. Not anymore. I'm taking San Fran plus 3.5 all the way.
I expect the 49ers to win this game, along with all the reasons you just stated, so why would I not take them if they are the underdog? 49ers all the way. And I quickly, before we go, I do want to ask you, who do you think is going to win the college football conference championships this weekend?
Okay.
And who will be your top 6 teams and your top 4?
So we have 5 big games, including tonight's game, Stanford and USC. That one's not as important as the other 4, but I'm just going to roll through the games right now, who I think is going to win, and I'm going to give you my top 6.
Little fact about the Stanford-USC game is if USC does win tonight, it'll be the first time Stanford loses to the same team twice in one season since I think it was 1913. But I do know that it was against a rugby team, and they had the Stanford football team play rugby. Crazy stat for you of the day.
Where else are you going to find statistics like that? Only here on Between the Hash Marks. But nevertheless, Clemson and Miami. I have Clemson over Miami. I think Clemson's going to rout them completely. They're playing this game in North Carolina. It's a lot closer to Clemson than it is to Miami. I think that fan is going to be 75% Clemson, 25% Miami. I think that game is going to be about 37 to maybe 17. Give me Clemson. Now,
I've got Clemson as well. I don't want to cut you off. I got Clemson as well for the same reasons. Miami, their offense is 45th. Their defense is 41st. Their strength of schedule is 28th. I mean, Clemson is 24th offensively. It's not so great, but their defense is 6th. Clemson's going to handily win this game. Clemson all day.
Okay, my next game, Wisconsin and Ohio State. I have the Badgers winning this game because their defense is so amazing and they know what they are. Ohio State has no idea what they are. JT Barrett, he's going to play, but he's a little banged up.
He just had surgery.
Yeah, I can't believe that he's actually going to play. And if he's not going to play, then definitely Wisconsin. So I know Ohio State's the favorite, but give me Wisconsin just because they know what they are. They know their game plan, and I think they're going to win. Give me them, let's say 27-24.
I've got Ohio State. Ohio State's more experienced. They've got Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is just kind of like Nick Saban. He's the second best football coach in college right now. There's no debate about it. I don't think there's a debate, at least not in my head. So I mean,
right there.
Nick Saban's obviously the number one. Ohio State's winning this game. It might be close, but I think Wisconsin, the buck stops here with them now. I know I used the same quote, but they've had a really pretty easy schedule. Now they're going to face a team in the top 10. I don't think that this is a match for Ohio State. Ohio State's going to win this game. I don't have a score for you. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout, what it is, but I definitely disagree. I think Ohio State takes this one and wins the Big Ten.
All right, my next game. This is probably the biggest game of the weekend. Georgia and Auburn. Who do you got?
I've got Auburn. Auburn already crushed, not even beat, but crushed Georgia. Auburn also beat Alabama, who is the consensus number one team in the nation all year by everybody, which is what we ranted about last podcast. They should still be in the top 4, damn it. But you know what? We'll see how it ends up.
Okay.
Auburn's winning this one. It's going to be close, though. It's not going to be a blowout.
Yeah, okay. I completely disagree with you. I think Georgia takes it over Auburn. Look, this is college football. You can't just beat a number one team, blow them out, and then play another number one team and dominate them, and then play another team, the number one team again, or the number 6 now, and just expect to like just overmatch them. That's not how this works in college. College is it fluctuates a lot. If teams play 10 times, it's going to be 5-5 or 6-4. Georgia is a lot closer to Auburn than you think. I think Georgia is closer to Alabama than Auburn is to Alabama, even though Auburn beat both of them. I like Georgia in this spot. There's really no pressure on them. They are the home team. This is going to be in Georgia. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs. I like them. I'm going to say 26-20.
Just a really quick point, going back to last week's episode, you just said that you think Georgia is closer to Alabama than Auburn is.
Yes.
But that being said, if the four best teams are really in there, it wouldn't matter about conference championships. It wouldn't matter about the head-to-head to Alabama-Auburn. You'd know Alabama's the better team, and they'd be in. That's what I was ranting about. That was the point I was trying to make last week.
That's fair.
But
next game, we have Oklahoma and TCU. This might be the second biggest game of the weekend. Maybe the third. They're all freaking big games. But I have TCU over Oklahoma. Look, this is all right.
I hope you're right.
I hope you're right. This is one I am sketched out about. I don't love TCU, but I don't love Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma has a lot of distractions with Baker Mayfield, and they beat TCU. They routed them about 3 weeks ago, but that was in Oklahoma. This is on a neutral field. I believe it's going to be played in Jerry World. That's in Texas. There's going to be a little bit of that home field advantage, I think. I really like TCU's defense, so I think they are going to surprise a lot of people. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises this weekend. Give me TCU. I think this is also going to be a very close game. I'm going to say 30-27 TCU.
Baker Mayfield's going to win the Heisman, best player in college football, and I think the best player in college football is going to not put the team on his back, but he's going to come through in the clutch. He's going to make the plays that need to be made, and I think you're right. It's going to be close, but Oklahoma will just slightly edge TCU because they do have the better quarterback. They do have the better team overall, I think. I think this one, I'll give you a prediction on this one, 31-28 Oklahoma.
Okay, so we basically think this game is going to go the same way. We're just kind of swapped with the scores.
Yes.
Okay, the final game here, it's the least meaningful game of the weekend, but it's still big. I mean, it's the Pac-12 championship. Stanford and USC. I'm going to take Stanford because I don't see David Shaw losing to the same team twice in a season. That's really the only reason that I have for you.
I'm taking USC because I just don't think Stanford's all that great this year.
They're really not.
And USC has a decent team. They have two bad losses. If one of those losses were a win, we're talking about a team who's already in the top 10 and possibly fighting for a playoff spot. So I like USC in this game. It's no question to me. And quite frankly, I don't think it's going to be close. I'll give you a prediction of a score. I think it's going to be 44-17 USC.
No, I could definitely see something like that happening, but I just think David Shaw's too smart of a coach, and he prepares too much for something like that to happen, so that's the only reason why I'm taking Stanford. So just giving you my rankings 1 through 6, you're actually going to like this. Because I have Clemson over Miami, I think that's going to be right. Clemson is going to stay at number 1. Georgia's going to beat Auburn, so Auburn's going to drop out. I have Georgia moving into the top 4. Because Wisconsin's going to beat Ohio State, Wisconsin's going to stay. And because I have TCU beating Oklahoma, Oklahoma drops out. So I have Clemson number 1, your Alabama Crimson tied at number 2.
Roll Tide.
They get lucky because they have an idol. They don't play this week, so they're going to move right up.
I told you, it could be a blessing in disguise.
I have Wisconsin at number 3, and then I moved Georgia up to number 4. This is going to be the first time where 2 teams from one conference are going to be in the college football playoff. I have TCU at number 5 because they have that win against Oklahoma, but that's not going to be enough for them to jump Alabama. Like it's just not going to be enough. And then I have Penn State at number 6 because Ohio State lost and Auburn lost and Oklahoma lost. That Penn State, they don't play anybody. They're just going to slide right into number 6. Who do you got?
I've got the only team. I have pretty much, like I said, Clemson winning, Auburn winning, Oklahoma winning, Ohio State winning, USC winning. So basically those will be 5 of the 6 teams here.
Okay.
The 6th team will be Alabama. But I've got Clemson number 1. Because Auburn beats Georgia again, they will stay idle at number 2. Oklahoma is going to win at TCU. They will stay number 3. But because Ohio State beats Wisconsin, Alabama is going to get the nod over Ohio State. They've only got the one loss.
Ohio State's done.
And their season's done. They've got one game left, plus a bowl game possibly.
Yeah.
And Alabama will regain into the top 4. And we could see a rematch of the title games 2 years in a row in the first round of the playoffs, the semifinal. Ohio State's going to be my number 5 team, and USC will jump into the top 10. They'll be the number 6 seed, and I think that they'll end up playing for the Rose Bowl this year.
All right.
The USC Trojans.
All right, so you have Clemson, Auburn, Oklahoma, Alabama. Okay,
Yes.
I have Clemson, Alabama, Wisconsin, Georgia. So, very interesting.
Well, you know what? The 2 constants in that are Clemson and Alabama, which shows the committee that those 2 teams really should be in, because in everybody's mind they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really don't have a problem with Alabama, because if you just look at every team in the top 10, if they were playing Alabama's a favorite. Well, I mean, Clemson, they're only maybe a 2 or 3 point favorite, but against a team like Wisconsin, they're probably like an 8 or 9 point favorite.
Tim Tebow came out and said it today that I think the exact words were Alabama would beat the brakes off of them. So
yeah, there you go. Also, I want to throw this in here. FAU is going to destroy North Texas on Saturday. Absolutely destroy them. A noon game. Conference USA Championship. It's going to be their first Conference USA Championship. And they've only been in the conference for about 3 or 4 years. Lane Kiffin, please stay with FAU one more year. I ask for one more year.
Could FAU end up being the best team in Florida this year besides UCF? Next week on Between the Hash Marks, we are going to have the final rankings of the college football playoff. And you know what? We're going to be talking about that. We'll be talking about a lot of things. Some more pro football. Who's going to be making the playoffs for pro football? Are you going to win your fantasy playoffs? All of that is coming up next week right here on BTH.